Hey, this is Robert at Goozy Fabrication. Now today for you beginners, this is geared towards you guys and gals working on your projects at home. I'm going to give you some low buck tools, tips, and tricks to finish sand your body after the body work has been done. Make your project come out beautiful. Now this is a 64 Impala, relatively flat panels, nice and straight. Pretty easy to sand with standard tools. Not a lot of curves. Then you get into something like this and oh wow. Okay, you can put a lot of damage sanding if you do it incorrectly. So let me give you a few tips. Now this is our project 1955 GMC LS swap truck. We've done a lot of work on this truck. Corvette front and rear suspension. And you name it. This is in depth. So we've already completed the body work. Now this is the first prime after the body work has been done. And this truck is all about the curves. Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, the belt lines, you name it. The only straight panels are the that little bit of the bed that's exposed and then that top rail. Everything else is a hard curve. It can be difficult to sand. You can put lines in the sand or sand lines into it, get it uneven, lumpy. Well, I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks. And the best tip and trick is just get your hands dirty. Hey, it's going to tell you, you start doing it, it'll tell you what it wants. Primer gun, guide coat, air tools, blocks, sandpaper, masking tape, pencils. That's what we're going to run over today. Okay, first up, primer guns. And moving on, I've laid out a few other tools and items on the table. We're going to cover all of that. Okay, so I just looked up the price. When I bought this is my paint gun. When I bought this, it was $600. I was about to have a cow. Well, now it's $1,000 loaded out. Wow. So we never use that for primer. This is my primer gun. I use epoxy and high build urethane primer run through it. Don't have any issues. You can tell it's used. Harbor Freight is where you get your inexpensive paint gun or primer gun. Don't invest a lot of money into it. $10 to $15 depending on if you catch it on sale. And when it's done, boom. Okay, guide coat. We're going to go over guide coating. This is after you prime. Now, what I'm opening here is just some base coat, black. The darker color, the better. And we're going to pour a little bit to a mixing cup. Not a lot. And we are going to mix it to about this consistency with lacquer primer. You want to use lacquer primer because you want it to evaporate and dry really fast off the surface. And the lacquer primer is more inexpensive. Okay, so this is what the guide coat looks like going on. This is what we're doing, and I'll explain why in a second. We're putting a light coat of black over our primer. Now, if this was black primer, well, obviously it's not going to work out well. But we want a nice, even coat. When we start block sanding this, we'll be able to see high and low spots with the primer. Now, you can also do it with spray can. But you want to use flat black. You don't want to use gloss black. Yeah, you'll figure it out real fast if you do. And you just apply it in the same way if you don't have a primer gun for whatever reason, you can do this with a spray can. And remember, this is about the low buck tips and tricks for beginners. And that's what it looks like. Okay, pencils. You can use pencils. Now, you can use a regular pencil. I like using a carpenter's type pencil. Don't have to sharpen it as often or break the lead break. Never mark on the body with a permanent marker. It'll bleed through the paint later, even if the primer covers it up. Tape. They're both Scotch-Brite, but this is less expensive. If you soak it with any type of solvent or paint or primer, it's going to gum up, stick. This one is less likely to. A little bit more money, invest in the green. It comes in yellow also, whatever your preference. Okay, when we're sanding the body after we primed, we don't want to use anything coarser than 120. We should be in the 120, 180, 220 range. Now this is called a continuous roll. Just roll it out, tear it off to whatever size it is sticky. Sticky back, stick it on whatever tool you're using. There you go. Now it also comes in pre-cut sections like this. This is a lot more expensive. Sticky back also. Stick with a continuous roll, save a lot of money. Okay, air tools. If you're at this stage of after the body work and you're priming and you're beginning, you really don't want to use air tools. Yeah, so just if you have them, put them aside. We're going to be doing this by hand. Okay, the cheapest first, paint stick. They'll give these to you at the paint supply store. Now, if you don't have one of these, we're not really using it today because we're doing curved. Well, you can make one. Tape 3 or 4 sticks together, make sure they're straight, and you're good to go. And now next up is called a DuraBlock. These are awesome. They're not expensive. You can buy sets. You can buy them individually. This one's pretty long. I cut this one down. Semi-rigid. Nice handhold. This is a little bit different shape. This is a lot more flexible. You can conform this to the body, whatever type of body shape you have. Another awesome thing about these door blocks, now this one I shaved down to match a curve that I needed to sand. You can do that with all of these. Now this is a round one, very useful. And again, they are pretty flexible. They'll conform to the body. This is a super useful one. Very flexible. Get in those really curved places. Now this thing is awesome. This is a little bit more money, obviously, but this is worth investing in. Okay, so this uses a backing like this. It's not stick-on. It's a hook-it type. But this thing will really conform to whatever shape you need it to. Makes sanding much, much easier. And you can hold on to this thing really easily. Yeah, this thing is awesome. And you can also sand with it flat or straight. And this is the type of sandpaper that it uses. Now, I'm sure that they make them in different brands. This one's perforated. You can just tear off whatever size you need. You're good to go. Okay, moving over, we're going to get into the sanding part. Now, it's hard to see with the primer on it, But this thing has so many different curves, reverse curves, concave, convex, every curve you can imagine, plus some lines. So you can remember we put our guide coat on. So if we were only using this type of block, yeah, we're going to have a problem. We can hurt this surface real easy. But if we use the other tools that I'm showing you, we're going to get a much nicer job, much nicer finish out. Now we're going to be priming this again. This is our first block. And it's as simple as wrapping the paper around it. You want to make sure it's tight so that it doesn't bunch up or crease up. Then you're going to dig lines into the primer. Don't want that. Use nice even pressure. It's not rocket science, but you got to pay attention. Okay, so we've done a little and immediately, hey, bang, we got a high spot. Here's where the pencil comes in handy. Okay, with the pencil, you can write on the body anything you want. You can make notes of high and low spots. Here's a good example of how curved the body really is. This is like a reverse curve, and then it goes into a different curve. Now we're going to pick this particular block, the round one. It'll do really well in this section. Then when we're done, it transitions into something different. So this little pad works really well there. Okay, now let me give you a tip. You should be wearing a respirator. You don't use that. Don't blow a bunch of particulates in the air. You just sweep it off. Now you don't got a big plume of dust in the air. Bad for the respiratory system. Always use PPE, protective equipment. Okay, so we're going to town on this. And now you can see the value of the guide coat. So anywhere that's not a solid color, if you see that black coming through anywhere, well, you're not done yet. Okay, here's where we're going to use the tape. Now we've got a straight line here at the bottom. So we want to sand a straight line. We don't want our line looking all willy wonky. And here's how you do that. Really simple, really easy. And now we're finishing it out we've used two different methods here. And we just reverse our tape. And we want to be accurate. Now we pulled from the unsanded area. Sand that. And one of the main things when you're sanding, you don't want to put gouges or lines into the primer. Those are going to come back and get you later. And if we want to round this off, well, pull the tape, round it off to your desire. But we've got a nice straight rounded line. Okay, this is what we have. This is what it should kind of look like on your first block. Remember our pencil. And if we've got a little bit of primer or metal coming through, if you want to mark highs and low spots, do it. I'm going to show you one last trick I always do. After our blocks, before the primer, the next coat of primer, I'll put a bunch of pencil lines, marks, doesn't matter the pattern. When we start sanding through, now we'll have a reference. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, good or bad, I dare you. Hey, as always, thanks for watching.